Welcome to From the Honeycomb podcast. I am your host, Katerina Borenova. Join me as we explore stories of fearless female entrepreneurs and inspiring women in architecture, construction, engineering, and beyond. Each episode is a captivating blend of topics that resonate with the soul. Whether you're here to learn more about entrepreneurship, architecture, holistic living, or just need a little extra inspiration, you've come to the right place. So sit back, relax, and let the buzz of positive energy spark your curiosity. Today, I'm excited to welcome Erin Fantozz, founder of EF Designs and an interior architectural designer with over a decade of experience. With dual degrees in interior design and architecture, Erin bridges creativity and technical expertise to deliver high-quality drafting, rendering, and design solutions. Erin, welcome to From the Honeycomb.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you because this is interesting, a dual degree in interior design and architecture. I don't have anyone on the podcast with both degrees.
Honestly, it's funny that you say that because the amount of people that I meet in this industry, everyone's like, what even prompted you to want to have both degrees? And it's so interesting too, because I haven't been able to connect with anyone else that also has dual degrees as well. So
no, really interesting. I'm excited to dive into your journey and how that all came about, because I think that will be really, really interesting.
Yes, definitely.
And as you know, we begin every episode by sharing what we are grateful for in the present moment. So Erin, what are you grateful for in the present moment?
Honestly, I think being on this podcast, if I would have told you a year ago that I would be on a podcast or that I would even be living out the most desires that I've had since I, started this journey, I would have told you that you were crazy. So I think, just being grateful for the moment of all the opportunities that have been put in front of me since stepping out in faith and just allowing myself to have the opportunities in front of me,
No, that's amazing. No, and I thank you for being grateful for coming on the podcast. I know we've been following each other on Instagram, and I've really been interested in following what you do and the services you provide, especially as an entrepreneur myself and in architecture. So, but no, that's amazing to hear that you're on this journey, and I can't wait to dive deeper into it.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I feel like I said, I never in a million years thought that this is where I would be. So I'm excited to be here.
Great. Well, I'm excited to have you here. Hi, it's me, Katerina. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share with you something that can change the trajectory of your life. If you are ready to start your own architecture firm but are feeling overwhelmed by where to begin, I understand, because I felt the same way when I first embarked on my entrepreneurial journey. This is why I have created the ebook, The Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm. This comprehensive workbook contains everything I wish I had known before starting my own firm. From building a solid business plan to creating your brand, The Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm offers a step-by-step guide tailored to your timeline, whether you're launching your firm today, next month, or in a few years. Dive into essential topics like financial planning, organization strategies, and how to secure your first client, all in one convenient resource. That's right, you don't have to spend hours researching. I have done that for you so you can focus on building your business. And that's not all. With your purchase, you'll also receive an exclusive meditation for business owners, mindfulness tips, a crystal guide for support, and gratitude exercises to help you stay focused and positive throughout your journey. Turn your dream of having your own firm into a reality with the Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm. Click on the link in the show notes to get your copy today. Now, let's dive into the episode. So Erin, have you always wanted to be an interior designer and architect? Or what came first, I guess?
So honestly, it's funny that you say that. So when I was in high school, we had this project that we had to build a home, our dream home out of foam core. I was in high school. I think I was a freshman or something. It was the major project, and I loved it. I've always been that person that loved to reorganize my room, so it was always interior design. I always just, loved interior design. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I decided I am going to Kent State. So Kent State is here in Ohio. It is an accredited program. There are, I think, 3 accredited programs now in Ohio, but Kent is the closer one to home, and it's ranked nationally. And I was like, that is where I'm going. So I applied and I got into the program. So, and it was kind of all history from there. So, interior design started out first. And then once I got into the program, the curriculum at Kent was very closely related to the architectural program. So, we took a lot of architecture courses then too.
Oh,
And I was in, I think, my second studio, and my professor looked at my model and at my plans, and she was like, Erin, have you ever thought about being an architect? Like, these are amazing. And that, I think, just got stuck in my head. And I realized how much I loved understanding the entirety of a building, of a home. And I was 3 years in at this point, and my parents were like, Erin, no, you are finishing out your degree. If you want to go back as an adult, like, you can do it on your own time, you know? So I finished out the interior design degree and I went into architectural world, and I was bartending fresh out of college, and it was a Sunday. I was hungover working, and this guy and his wife came to my bar, and we were talking, and he was a structural engineer at a firm close by, and they had an architectural division there. And he's like, you need to apply. Like, you're sharp, you know what you want, all these things. And so I applied, and I landed my first architectural kind of job. And with that being said, I started that company and I was there for like a year, and they had a tuition reimbursement there.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? This is like telling me something. Like, I wanted to go back, you know, to school, and this is like the universe telling me, like, Erin, now is your time. So I really enjoyed working with the people there. It was more manufacturing buildings, not very high on the interior design side. So I never really got a ton of experience on the interior design. And I went back to school. So I started back at Kent. I had like a couple of years to obtain the second degree. And I still wasn't feeling fulfilled at that position. While, yes, the tuition reimbursement was great, but my day to day and the grind of working full time, driving back and commuting, like, I think it was a 45-minute drive at that point, 5 days a week. Like, it was just a lot. And so I applied to another position that had more of the higher design, more of the corporate design, higher education, like more interior design and architectural. So I could kind of really see what both of those together looked like. And they had a job opening for an intern architect. And in my mind, I'm like, I am not qualified for this. Like, I am an interior designer. Yeah, I started my architectural degree. I only have 1 year under my belt. Like, maybe I just really need to explore interior design. Maybe I'm not meant to be in architecture, you know? So I went into that interview, and, you know, they brought to my attention, they're like, well, this position is for intern architects. And I said, yeah, I know, but I just wanted to apply to kind of have the conversation, right? I think sometimes that's what is very important. It's like, you might be overqualified or underqualified, but having a conversation, someone really gets to know you and who you are. And I think sometimes that's most important. Well, long story short, I ended up getting the job there, and they were like, but we want you to continue your degree. We'll work with you. We will, you know, you can work on an hourly basis, work as many or as little hours as you need. And from there, the rest is history. I mean, I finished out the degree, graduated from Kent in 2019 with the architectural degree, and I slaved away for 3 years of working pretty much full time and commuting back and forth to school and doing the grind. So,
wow, that's amazing to hear. And there's so many points I want to talk about too. Is one thing that I just going back to your interview, how you said, you know, even to have the conversation and to be able to understand. And I think that's something that's so important is you may be underqualified, you may be overqualified, but you don't know until you sit down and you talk to someone and they get to know you. And I think that's something that's really intimidating when you're coming out of college and, you know, you're applying for jobs. And like for me, a big one was I never learned Revit, and it's a thing I've never learned. I've never had to use it. I did maybe like a little bit in school, but I just didn't really understand it and we didn't really need it. And I was like, well, I can't apply to all these jobs that require Revit, for example. But I mean, I'm a fast learner, you know, and in architecture school, we learn so many different programs, so many softwares, things are changing. And like to be able to be open to that in a conversation with a possible employer, like I like that you said, you have to have that conversation to know, you know, where do you stand? So it's inspiring that you went ahead and took the step to even have the conversation. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I think the firm size that they're small. I mean, they were like family to me. I can talk about them all day. Like, I, to this day, will say I would never be where I'm at if I didn't have their leadership and their mentorship. It was a small firm. There was 5 principals. They didn't overhire. They really poured into their employees, and we're like a younger age, right? So like they really helped invest in us. There was a season when I was there too, I love learning. I love collaboration and all of that. And myself and one of my colleagues, we ended up hosting at our office a lead like study group to others in the profession and industry, because we just felt like having that, community of all of us studying together. And like, they were very supportive of ideas that we had. They were open to all of the different things that, also got them out in the community and things like that too. So it was a really wonderful firm to work for. And I'm glad that they were able to bring me in. And, like I said, they were like family to me. So.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
that's amazing to hear. That's amazing to hear, because I think there's so few firms like that, and especially ones that want to invest in their employees, and especially the new generation. And then you mentioned even studying. So while you were at this firm, were you studying for your exams?
So what I was studying for the USGBC for lead green associate while I was there.
Okay.
I never studied for my AREs or my NCADQs while I was there. I had, the desire to, but when I had ended up graduating architectural school at the end of May in 2019, I mean, I was doing school around the clock, like around the calendar year, like fall semester, summer semester, spring semester. I was tapped out. Like that summer, I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to like go out to my pool and lay out. Like, I just want to see some sun. You know what I mean? Like there was just so many things I wanted to do, because for 3 years, I was just grinding it out. And, so once I graduated, I was like, I just want to move. Like, I just want to go do something, get out of the city for a little bit, and I worked and lived in downtown Cleveland. Like we had the sporting event, like we had all that. I just needed like a fresh breath of air. So I ended up moving to Columbus, Ohio. And basically I moved there because, it's bigger than Cleveland. It's a couple hours away, but a lot of my girlfriends from college were there. And I had missed the relationships that I had in college the first time around, because I didn't really have that the second time. I was an adult going back to school with a bunch of 18-year-olds. Like the whole entire, like, I don't even know, like the whole like atmosphere of it was just so different. Like, and when you're in the working field and you go back to school, it's practical, it's not practical. So like having those two things together, I was like, oh my gosh, when is this over? Like this is just so hard. So once I got down to Columbus, I worked at a firm that they were really pushing for like studying for NCADQ and, to be licensed of some sort. And that is what I think got really hard for me, because I hold a Bachelor of Science in Architecture. So I do not have a NAB, basically a degree for me to be able to sit for examination here in Ohio. So I would have to have a MArch for that. And once I was completed with that second bachelor's degree, I was like, I'm done. Like, I am not going back to school, especially at a master's level. Like at this point, I put in 8 years of college, like something's got to come from this, And so I started studying for my NCADQs, and it was hard. It was rough. Then COVID happened. So the week before I was going to sit for my exams after, just got done with school, 8 months later, I'm going to sit for my NCADQ exams. COVID happens. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is obviously not the season, But then with that, I ended up getting pregnant. I had my daughter, still COVID. She's a COVID baby. God bless her. But the firm that I was working at down there, like it wasn't serving me well. It was a healthcare firm, and it's new. Like healthcare design is so different compared to anything I've ever done before. And trying to learn that remotely, because we all were working from home. I'm like, what am I doing? I have a baby at home. My family's 2 hours away. I didn't have the support that I needed, even in my personal life and then the professional life. So that got really hard. And I transitioned and started working for a contractor as a subcontractor working on Starbucks designs. So this gave me the flexibility that I needed. I was able to work pretty much my own hours, work 40 hours a week, get paid very well, but I was still able to be there for my newborn and for my 6-month-old baby and, go home, 2 hours away if I needed to. So life kind of took a shift. So here I am, I have these 2 degrees. I'm sitting for my NCIDQs and now I'm like, I'm just getting by. Like I'm in this survival mode of like, I just need income. I just need something to say, check mark done, and it started getting very discouraging to myself because I put in so much work, right?
Yeah.
And motherhood just like changed me, completely changed me. And, I just felt so alone and I'm like, I need my family back, that's what I need. So I ended up moving back to my hometown. So I'm a single mom and I have amazing family support. And when I moved back here, I'm like an hour away from the city. So my hometown is like an hour out. And there's no architectural firms around here. Like, I've always been very Revit heavy in all the firms that I've worked at. And the 2 firms that are here where I reside they don't even use Revit. Like, they're like, we use AutoCAD. And I'm like, that's like me going backward. Like, I have 8 years of experience in this program that I feel is so powerful and I can't do that. So I ended up going back to that firm that I was telling you about that was like family to me. I commuted an hour back and forth every day. And meanwhile, single mom, I have a 1.5-year-old baby here. And I'm just like, this isn't the life. Like, I should not be just checking into a 9 to 5, leaving my house at 6:30 in the morning to sit in traffic, to beat traffic, to sometimes I was really busy and I had a lot to do. Other times I felt like, what am I doing here? Meanwhile, I'm sending my child to a daycare and paying for childcare. And I'm like, this just isn't it. And so it's just kind of all evolved from then. And then I kind of started this new era of Erin, and it's just been a ride.
It's interesting. It's a common theme I've heard with women in architecture of once they start thinking about motherhood or, thrust into motherhood, however motherhood shows up for them in their life, is they really start to reevaluate the 9 to 5. And thankfully, we are in a profession with architecture, interior design, kind of the design creative industry where we have the ability to be able to work for ourselves and then have the flexibility. And in some ways, it's kind of sad that seems to be like one of the main options because a lot of the big firms and other firms and smaller firms, like the firm I previously worked at, didn't have a maternity policy. I would have been the first employee to have gone through that had I gotten pregnant there. So they didn't even have anything in place. But it's interesting that is the route that so many of us in architecture, in women in architecture, that's the route we end up taking. So share with us, when did you realize like you are going to go off on your own and have your own business?
So I've always had the desire to be an entrepreneur. When I was in college, I was like, I'm getting a minor in entrepreneurship. Like
Good for you.
I love it. It was like, I didn't finish it. I got a marketing minor instead, but it was still there. So I decided, I think having that contract role for a little bit made me realize like there's so many other opportunities out here. Like it doesn't have to be a traditional setting of just going to an office and, doing all that. Like there's a life that I want to live. And I've always done side work. I've always kind of, assisted friends or other people in their design or their documentation or things like that. And so about a year ago, I was sitting again for my exams for NCIDQ. And I remember telling my boss, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, this drive is killing me. I've been doing this now for 10 months. Like I was finally getting out of my postpartum kind of phase. My daughter will be 4 in April. So it's just like, I was finally getting out of that. And I think I started coming more into light of, I desire so much more for my life, for what I already know. And while they were giving me a lot of opportunities, I was sitting in interviews, they were starting to give me a lot more responsibility, but I just felt like I was needing more, So I just feel like, I came to this point where I was working with a friend of mine. She works works at a structural engineering firm, and she was starting her own architectural division there. We actually went to interior design school together, and she's a registered architect now. So
Nice.
she's only an architect there. And so she's like,
Mm.
Erin, I need help. Like, I cannot do this alone, you know? So outside of working my 9 to 5, I was assisting her for a while. And I was just like, yep, maybe this is what it is. You know, like there is a need here. There is a need for overworked architects and overworked designers to assist them in their processes to, you know, take the bottleneck out of them, take the stress out of them, and allow a team or an individual at that point take over who enjoys doing that kind of stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just made the decision. It was a very strange transition out of corporate, like as everybody likes to say, you know, a transition from them understanding that, you know, my home life was much different. And while it's none of their business, like they do like to understand that a little bit. And they didn't realize all the responsibilities of being single mom and all that kind of stuff. So they're like, just work from home all the time. You know, that's fine. Just come in whenever you need to. And so that's what I did for about a month. And I was like, this is just, I don't have enough work. Like, I feel like I'm just at my computer for the sole fact of being at my computer. And I'm more of a, like, not task oriented, but very much so like, I have high functioning anxiety. I have to be doing something. If I'm not doing something, I'm going to find something to do. And working from home, like I wasn't getting that. And so I just told them, I was like, look, like one, I feel like I'm underpaid. Two, thank you so much for allowing me to work from home. But I need to go on a 1099 basis, hourly basis with you. Like, that's just what I have to do. It's what works best for my family. It'll work best for them in the long run too, because their workload was kind of dwindling down at that time. And so I did that for about a couple of months. And I realized that while I loved working with them, there has to be communication on both ends. You know, I'm an over communicator. Communication was always an issue in the office. And I realized like, oh my gosh, like they never really like worked from home during COVID. They don't understand what it's like to communicate, you know, virtually all the time and check in and all that kind of stuff. So basically, they were one of my first clients. My old firm was one of my first clients. And I just think, you know, we kind of worked the waves a little bit. And then one day they were just like, thank you. And, you know, we'll be in touch. And I was like, okay. Like, it was weird. Like, I wish it would have ended a little bit different. Like, I'm pretty sure I still probably have things at my desk in the office. Like, it's been almost a year now, but, you know, I don't know. Yeah. So very different transition, but I just think there was a desire for more. And there was a realization of like, there is a gap in the industry and there is a way for me to take the skill sets that I love and I enjoy doing and put them to use for those who are extremely overworked.
No, I think you found a really great like niche too. Not a niche, but like, yeah, like a gap in the system kind of, because I think it's so true. Like me as a sole entrepreneur and just working by myself, there are moments where I'm overwhelmed and there's like a few weeks and it would be great to be able to have someone to bring on because then there's those moments where work kind of dwindles or I'm waiting on city submittals and so I can't have an employee. And it's so much easier to be able to reach out to someone like you, like yourself, who is in the industry, who knows the programs, who knows the work, to be able to help that, have that kind of helping hand when it's needed. And like you were saying, that bottleneck, because there's so many moments. And, you know, right now I'm semi busy and I'm hoping to get even busier. And like, that's kind of my goal is to learn how to delegate this year, because that's something last year in business I didn't do, but it's on my like, you know, vision board for this year is to learn how to delegate some of my work once it gets really busy, because also I had to learn how to put together like a construction set based off of how I wanted it to look. And I finally just did that. So I finally have templates to be able to give it to someone. But anyway, I don't want to go off on that tangent, but I think it's really great that you found this market, because like I know so many other architects around and I've had to help other architects with drafting. That is actually what I worked on when I first went off on my own. I had my own few little projects, but I was helping a woman in Florida do some draft work because there's just ebbs and flows in the business. And so I think your position and like what you do, what you offer is very helpful and very beneficial to architects. and designers.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I didn't think it would be a huge thing, and it took me a while to figure out like the understanding of like what it would take for someone like yourself to have an employee versus a subcontract. I'm like, what did they, you know what I mean? But like you said, as a solo entrepreneur or even like small architecture firms or, luxury designers, like they just might have one project. Interior designers, I see they've done the design, but they have renderings that they want to show their clients, and to really just show that client, like, hey, this is what it's going to look like based on all my selections. And then also to have, millwork elevations and millwork sections to provide to their contractors to have a more cohesive conversation with them, And like with architecture firms, I am seeing that a lot of like the smaller to medium sized architecture firms, they're struggling to find the quality of work for employees. And having someone in office, I think what was happening is there's a lot of fresh young blood coming out of college and they want to work from home, but they're not getting the mentorship. Like, that's why I say, like, I would not be where I'm at if I did not have the experience that I've had. And I'm still learning every day. We, in this profession, we will learn every day until we are in the ground, like there is always changing. It's always evolving. And to be surrounded by individuals who can help teach you or you can learn from based on some things that I might know, but or vice versa. Like that's so empowering too, So yeah, it's crazy how things have evolved. And I do think that there is a big gap to be bridged here with this.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So one question I want to ask you, which I get all the time as a business owner, is how do you get clients? So how do you find clients? Like, how do you find clients?
I have my social media.
Yeah.
Truthfully, like
really,
I feel like social media is where it's at. Like, especially for myself, like it's not business to consumer, it's business to business. So, okay, who's your ideal client? Where are they hanging out at? I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, a ton of Facebook groups and just collaborating. And there's a ton of people looking for help and you just reach out. And I'm a people person. I feel like too, like when you can have a conversation with somebody, like they're just like, oh, yep, she communicates this and that. So yeah, social media. I mean, that's where it's been. I've had a couple of referrals. But my first client was a friend. My second client was my old firm. So they kind of help that momentum, Yeah.
Yeah. It's always interesting. Yeah. I think it's great that you're able to use the power of social media as well. I think that's something I'm also trying to work out this year is like getting clients through social media because that's something I haven't really been able to see because I work mostly locally. And so I go to like local business clubs. But the fact that you're virtual too, because you can work with people from all across the US / really the world, which is really, really beneficial. So I see how social media can definitely be a great platform for you to use.
Yeah. I just hope it doesn't crash because then what are we going to do?
Oh my gosh, I know.
That's the biggest fear, right? Like, what are we going to do if social media crashes?
It is. It's huge. It's really interesting. That's like, I think we're touching a lot of points on what I'm working on this year too, is I'm looking to explore other platforms besides just like Instagram, which is mostly where I'm at. I don't have a TikTok, but now I'm looking at LinkedIn and like seeing if that's a possibility, which that seems like LinkedIn is where it's at for professionals. And I'd recently had a guest on, it'll be a January episode with Amy from Markedly. And we talk a lot about, how do you market yourself as an architect? And LinkedIn is a huge thing. So I'm like, okay, I need to get comfortable with LinkedIn.
Yeah, I will say LinkedIn is a very powerful place. I haven't been hanging out in LinkedIn very much, but when you start your LinkedIn, just like have, everyone in the architectural industry, you know what I mean? And just to collect, because I'm on my second LinkedIn account now. My first one got hacked. And then when I got a new one, I was like, no, this is not going to be for where family and friends are. This is strictly business. So when I got a new one, probably about 10 years ago or 8 years ago, yeah, it's all architecture. It's all design. It's all inspiration. Yeah, I definitely highly recommend LinkedIn.
No, it's definitely another tool to use. So one thing I also want to talk to you about is the entrepreneurship side of business, because I know a lot of guests I've been having recently have their own businesses. And we excel at whatever services we're providing. So in your case, architectural and design services, but then there's the business aspect of having your own business. What has that been like for you?
Well, so let me just tell you, I started my business less than a year ago. I mean, officially less than a year ago. And I thought it was always just going to be me. I just thought it was going to be me. Like I had my Honeybook set up, which is a CRM, and that was the first thing. And I just started kind of working at it. And in July, I was only in business for 4 months. I officially left corporate at that time, and I had 5 clients, and I was going on vacation. And I was like, what am I going to do? I have clients. I want to go on vacation. I want to spend time with my family. And I have a amazing business coach. She was like, you need to delegate. And I was like, I'm a control freak. Like, I want to make sure everything is good. Like, there's no way. Like, this makes me very anxious. Like, what am I going to do? So anyways, I had a couple of people that I had kind of talked to, and I was like, hey, listen, do you need whatever? And so I had someone help me with renderings, and I had another girl help me on production. And to this day, they are my go-to number one girls, like love them. And it's just about finding people that you trust, so I started off with, I got myself a bookkeeper. I don't touch money. Like I need someone to make sure that they can keep me in line. Right. So I got myself a bookkeeper. I am not a social media person. I try to stay away from it. I'm trying to be present. I got myself a social media manager, and she's great too. It's finding those people who can do the things that you don't love to do. Right. No different than me bridging that gap of technical drawings. No one likes technical drawings. Some might, most don't. But, so not even with a year under my belt, I started reading this book. I don't know if you've read it, Profit First.
I think I have it. I have not read it. I do need to read it. It's in my library.
Girl, you need to. I started it, and I was messaging my business coach, and I was like, Nicole, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out, because I don't know how to run a business. Like I'm just delegating the things that I don't want to do, and I'll figure it out. Like up until this point, I've just been coasting. I've just been making not impulsive decisions, but decisions based on month to month, but my accounts don't say that. You know what I mean? It's just, it's wild how much I don't know about how running a business, and the more people that I communicate with that can help guide me through that, I'm figuring it out, So I will say that book has been a big eye opener to me, all about paying yourself first and having profits and setting money aside for certain things. And I'm super excited going into year 2 for what this business will look like. And we're also hiring. So, I mean, we're getting to the point where we're so busy that I'm looking for a registered architect to join our team. And the leads have been, hot. There's a lot of leads happening right now. So this is not what I thought entrepreneurship would look like. I thought that it was just going to be me in the weeds every day doing technical drawings, where now it's kind of shifting where, yes, I am in the technical drawings, but I'm also the QA QC. I'm making sure that my bookkeeper has all the information that she needs. And it's definitely CEO founder role, but I do enjoy doing the technical side of things. And I still have those few clients where I'm like, those are the projects I'm working on. So yeah, it's different.
It is. And you touched on a great point of we don't learn about how to run a business. I mean, I think for me, the one area that I did learn about it was when I was studying for my ARE exams. There was 1 or 2 of the exams that kind of told you how do you run a firm, but it's not just a one-person firm. They talk about big firms, large firms, and everything is different. And then you have state laws and, have, all those other things that go into it. And it's really, you just kind of learn on the job. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you're learning. But it's so great to hear that things are going well and that you're able to delegate. I am someone, like I said, this year I'm working on delegating and learning to delegate. I think for me, it took a little time to establish what it is I wanted my drawings to look like. It was a little bit of a slower process in that sense. But now I feel like, okay, I'm ready to, let go of the reins a little bit to get it. Because there's definitely, like you said, finding people you can trust. I think that is a huge thing because especially when you are so small, having one bad apple can really be detrimental to your business.
Exactly. And it's been hard and challenging for myself because, again, I am that control. I've had amazing mentorship, and not everybody has had the same level of mentorship either, So it's really just kind of putting the ego aside and the pride aside and just being like, okay, is this going to work or is it not going to work? I don't have employees. I work with subcontractors, so it's nice just to kind of find the people that you can trust and to be fully incorporated into the business.
No, absolutely. And then random question at the end. Are you a corporation, LLC, sole proprietor?
I'm an LLC.
Okay. Yeah, I know I've mentioned it on the podcast a few times, and an architect can't be an LLC in California, but every other state, it sounds like they can. But even in like your case, you're able to be an LLC as a designer then.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't know enough about that kind of stuff. Why I decided on an LLC.
Yeah.
I think, well, from what I know is an S Corp is like all of your assets are liable, right? Like it combines protected. Yes.
Yeah.
But if something goes wrong in my business and my personal stuff can be jeopardized.
That would be a sole proprietor. So S Corp protects you on multiple fronts, and then S Corp, so for me, I have to be an S Corp because I can't be an LLC. I could be a sole proprietor, but I chose S Corp to protect my assets. And then there's S Corp and C Corp, and S Corp has better tax incentives. Okay. Don't ask me, I don't know the details of that, but I do know S Corp is better than C Corp I think C Corp is double taxation. S Corp is single taxation.
Okay. All I know is I just wanted the safest route. And again, here's the other thing too. I only started my LLC from when I was doing subcontracting with the Starbucks. And I didn't know I was going to be this, you know what I mean? And so when I started this, I continue to work underneath the same LLC. So until my tax accountant tells me otherwise, I'm just going to keep riding it out.
That's true. Very good. Very good. Well, Erin, this conversation was so fun. It was so interesting to hear kind of your journey, also in interior design, architecture, then how that led you to starting your own firm or your own business to help architects. I think you've really found a great business, and it sounds like you're doing really well. You seem happy. I think you found what you were meant to be doing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like too, the sky's the limit. There's no ceiling, so I'm just going to keep going for it.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all of the best. And where can listeners find you?
They can find me on Instagram at efdesigns.va or on Facebook. I also have a Facebook page, and that's where I'm at.
Perfect. Well, Erin, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of From the Honeycomb podcast. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to rate, review, and share it with your friends. To stay connected, follow me on Instagram at From the Honeycomb podcast, and you can support the podcast through the Patreon link in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to my monthly newsletter where I share exclusive behind-the-scene content and tips on running a mindful and successful architecture business. Thank you again for listening, and stay curious.